Welcome to Let's Make a Game Platformer, episode 18. In last couple of episodes, I've added main menu, as you can see here with plus screens, as well as the game UI menu showing time, score, as well as the amount of lives. And I've added this support for multiple lives, so once we run out of them, we go to the main menu. So this was kind of boring stuff that had to be done. Now, finally, I'll be able to go into actual gameplay, adding some awesome features and so on. But let's start with replacing a couple of the placeholder images I have at the moment. So first of all, I created this exit portal block tile, and also I'll be using these for rendering character. This is a Duke, a Java mascot kind of thing. So let's start off by changing the player prefab to, for the time being, use for front texture, use characters Duke right PNG, and for back texture, use characters Duke left PNG. For the time being, the only one we will be able to see is the front, but today I'll be adding a bit of extra step to the rendering of the characters, which will allow us to switch between front and back visible. Okay, so let me run this one. Okay, so this is almost working. So we see the Duke. However, instead of transparency, as we see here, we can see that there's this black screen. That's because by default the OpenGL doesn't respect transparency. You have to explicitly specify that this specific model has transparency. And to do this in the material, we have to specify pass a blending attribute here. So basically this means, by the way, this material that is used to render this model has some transparency pixels. So let's run this again. Okay, so now we have it working correctly. So we have a replacement for the player texture already. Let me just replace the block definition for the exit portal as well. So block tiles, exit portal. All right. So now we are seeing this problem where I'm not sure how visible it is. Maybe if I make it larger screen. That the transparency of the Duke character is covering the stone that should be in here, in this small area here. The reason for this is the order in which these have been drawn. So if the Duke is drawn first, and then all of those pixels are marked as with this depth at which it is drawn, and then if we draw afterwards, we will draw the actual platform, then the platform will see, oh, actually this pixels have been already drawn at this distance from camera, so those blue ones, so I will not draw the stone. To fix this, as you might remember, we do the rendering using the events. Sorry, in here, render characters. So we are doing render environment events. And you can order in which order specific events should be events listener. So this is basically a listener method, render characters listens on this event, in which they are executed by specifying a priority. Higher priority, it means going to be drawn first. By default, the priority is 0. So if we consider that the priority of rendering platforms is 0, then if we specify a lower priority, then the characters will be drawn after the platforms. So let me run this again. So lower priority means that it's going to be drawn after something that has higher priority. This is true for everything that has received event on a specific event. Okay, now it's going to be always drawn fine. Awesome. Okay, so let me now. So we've got this, we got this. Okay, so next thing I'd like to do is add this star. So this is going to be something that the Duke's going to be collecting from in the game. We'll have a star somewhere that Duke will collect, and it will disappear. I'd like to do this the same using the character renderer and character renderer and character render component. However, this is no longer a character, so let me rename this to a model renderer component. So rather than a character, it's going to be about models. And I also want to fix that we don't have to specify this ID, because it's pretty awful if we have to. So what I'll do in here instead, at the moment the player has the character render component. Rather than having character, it will be now model render component. And instead of passing the shape and textures and all the other stuff, let me think. So let me, in the meantime, I'm thinking, rename this to model renderer. How I want to do this. Okay, so rather than having all those stuff in the model renderer, it will specify just model prefab. That way, if you have multiple of the same model, for example, the star will have multiple stars on the level or between different levels. We don't want to create so in here at the moment we are creating for each ID, we create a new model instance and model. Model is an expensive object because this is stored on graphics cards. So it's bad to have for each of those stars. Let's say you have 10 stars in the level, that we have 10 separate models if we can just store one, because this is the same thing everywhere. So instead of specifying all the stuff about the player here, we will have a model shape component. And we will specify it here. So what's going to happen is now player in the prefab will say that it's using model prefab. And we'll say the prefab name is model player. And we'll create a prefab here in the folder models with the name model player prefab, and I'll create a here model shape component with these values. Okay, so now I have to fix the model renderer. So this is the name here is going to be not character, it's going to be models. And now this, instead of being ID, is going to be name of the prefab to the model, so that the same prefab will be used for, if, for example, we have 10 instances of the star entities in memory, it will just have star, model star, and pointing to one model on the graphics cards, and then here, rather than the ID once again, here we will use entity ref to specify what's the model instance for this particular entity. Okay, so we are in here, instead of going through model render component, we want to load all the things that have model shape component. Models index. Find prefabs with model shape. Sorry, no, this is correct. We have to model shape component here. Okay, so this is loading. So we basically go through everything that has this component through all prefabs, because this defines all the models we might have. We load them into the texture atlas of models. And then in here, whenever character is added, instead of getting ID, so it's going to be model render component. Instead of that, we do character render, get model prefab, and if not models contains key model prefab. So if we haven't loaded it yet, haven't created it yet, then we'll be loading it. Prefab manager, get prefab my name model prefab. Model prefab. Okay, and we'll entity manager wrap. So it's going to be a model entity, and from that we get component model shape. And everything else is going to be the same. So rather than character render, we do model shape, get shape, model shape, get textures, and we will be models put model prefab name, the model. So this replaces this line. And finally, we'll create a new model instance with the entity here, passing the models get out model prefab. So if it contains the key, we don't have to create second time. So we use the model that is already there. We just create a new model instance for it. However, first time we go through character being added, we make sure that the model is being loaded into the graphics cards and create the model. Okay, so in here, whenever we want to render characters, I have to transform it. I'm thinking maybe model shape doesn't have to have these. Let me check how it's going to work. So we get through all entities. Model instances get character render. So entity ref in here. And maybe the model renderer will have the information about translation. Okay, that seems more like it. So in the player, so only shape and textures will be there, and translation is going to be unique for each of the model instances, and that way we can do this. When character is removed, we have to remove entity, and we do not dispose these. Whenever character is removed, instead we dispose them in post destroy. That way we can reuse them whenever they're gonna be encountered later on. Okay, that should work, I think. Let's see. Okay, that seems fine. Okay, so now I can add a star prefab. Let's create here objects. It's gonna be a place where it's gonna place some objects that exist in the game. Star prefab. So let me copy for a second the player. We'll just remove the stuff which should be not there. Doesn't have sound, doesn't have score. It has location. And model render. It will have model star. Kinetic object. No. Player controlled, definitely not. So kinetic object means that it's going to be affected by movement. We don't want to move at the moment. We want to be static. Player controlled, no. Affected by gravity, no. It's not going to collide with anything. However, other stuff can collide with it. So we'll leave this. And camera focus, no. Okay, so we specified that the star has location. It is rendered using model star model and has this characteristics for hitbox, because we want to, whenever player overlaps with the star, we want the player to consume the star. Okay, so in models, I'll create a model star prefab here, and for, I think, let me check, cube, I think there is a front and back. Front and back. Okay, so I can define it with one specification here. It's going to be model / star PNG. Okay, so on front and back it will have a star on it. Okay, so let's, now I have to modify the level. Map string objects, or maybe you can reuse the same one. Oh, let's create a new one here. Get objects, object coordinates. So just as we had here, we'll create some objects based on those. So local Okay, so we'll have level get object coordinates, object coordinate, it's going to be always going to be created as an entity. Okay, and in level, so let's say that first level will not have them. That means that we have to make sure if that this is not dying if coordinates is null. However, in second level, I'll add a star. So level sample 2. Let me move this a bit higher. Zero, zero, this is going to be 2. The grass is going to be 2 and 3. And object coordinates, I'll create a star on the platform on the left, which is this one. So coordinates will be minus 3.5, minus 5.5 on the leftmost, and 1, 0. And the prefab name is star. Okay, level 1. Level 2 has failed. Indeed, star should not have a location because we are adding it here. So the star prefab should not have a location. Okay. Because locations are added automatically to it based on the level configuration. Okay, we have a star. Great. Awesome. Okay, now it would be nice to have the star actually disappear when player overlaps with it. So let's do a new component, collectible component, so for elements that can be collected by a player. Interface, extends component, and we'll add it to the star. And we'll add here to the logic collectible system. So we want to detect that, similarly to the portal, check, we have to receive hitbox overlap player component. So if receive event collectible collected, so player has went maybe not player, collectible component. And we'll add, actually we'll add a new component. This is collectible and new component collector. So player will have a flag that says it is a collector, and whatever items or whatever objects that can be collected will have the collectible. That we'll be able to check. Okay, so we have this. We have to add the player the collector component. Collector, and if event get other entity has component collectible, we will send an event on the collector, maybe on the collectible, no, on the collector. This is, you can do either or. So on the collector, on the entity, we'll send a new event, collectible collected, extends event, and constructor, send new collectible collected, passing the collectible, and after we do this, we will destroy the collectible. So for that we need to, so basically we'll disappear the star, remove the star from the memory. So we'll have to inject entity manager, destroy entity. Okay, so if collector is overlapping with the collectible, we'll send the event collectible collected and then destroy the entity. So in scoring system, we'll add that we'll add a new component, star component, or maybe let's create a scoring collectible component, extends component, and with a method get score increase. So if scoring collectible collected, so it has to be something that has a score component. If event get collectible has component scoring collectible component, then event get collectible get component scoring collectible component, and we'll increment the score by score get score plus scoring get scoring, get score increase, and save it. Okay, so maybe this I'll move to score. So now I have to modify the star prefab to be not only collectible component, but also scoring collectible component with a score increase of, let's say, 10. So now what's going to happen, what should happen is when I overlap the player on the star should disappear and my score should increase by 10 because the collectible system would detect that the collectible was collected and will destroy it, and then the scoring system will say, oh, the collectible actually is something that increases the score, so it will increment it. Okay, so let me run this. First level doesn't have a star, second level does. Okay, we have 1010. However, everything disappeared. Okay, that's a progress. Not a great one though. Let me check what happened there. We are destroying a player. We should be destroying the added entity. So event get other entity is the one that should be destroying. The other entity in here is the star entity. This is the player entity here because it's the collector. So what was happening is basically the camera no longer had the player to look at because the player was disappeared. 1000 and score is 1010. For some reason our exit portal has disappeared. Probably it's defined in the wrong spot. Yeah, it's overlapping the grass. So we have to do it 3 here. Level 1, level 2. Okay, that's it for this episode. Make sure to like it and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. Bye.